The real suspect scrambled up and vanished into the crowd. But when the police arrived moments later, they saw only Issa on the ground, confused and wide-eyed. He didn't run, he didn't speak, he just froze. To them, that looked guilty. They shouted commands. "Get on the ground! Show me your hands!" Issa is 37 years old. He's tall, good-looking, with quiet eyes and a peaceful face. He doesn't speak, not because he won't, but because he can't. Issa is autistic, and his silence is part of who he is. But those who know him best say he's one of the gentlest souls they've ever met. Issa was born in Amman, Jordan. His mother was Jordanian, a woman of deep Christian faith and resilience. His father, a born-again Christian American, was working overseas when they met. Issa was their only son, and from the start they knew he was different. Delayed speech, sensitive to loud sounds, a unique way of seeing the world. But he smiled, he laughed, and he loved music. His parents loved him fiercely. At age 7, Issa and his family moved permanently to the United States. His father filed all the right paperwork, and Issa was issued a U.S. passport. He became a citizen through his father. His entire life from that point forward was in America. The schools that struggled to understand him, the local parks where he walked daily, the group homes that cared for him with quiet kindness. America was his home. He never went back to Jordan. Not once. Not for a visit. He couldn't remember much of it anyway. Just flashes of childhood, smells of spices in the air, and his grandmother's voice. But one day, that life came crashing down. Issa was spending the afternoon with his mother at the mall. It was one of their small routines. She liked to walk with him, arm in arm, pointing out decorations or small things that made him smile. Issa didn't speak, but he listened closely. He always felt safest when she was near. That day, she stopped to use the restroom. She asked him to sit on a bench just outside the entrance, where he always waited patiently. Issa nodded as he often did, and sat quietly, hands folded, rocking gently in rhythm with the sounds of the mall. But in the span of those few minutes, everything changed. A man was running, fast. Shouts echoed behind him. Security guards chased close behind. The man rounded a corner and crashed into Issa, who had just stood up, startled by the noise. They both fell to the floor. The real suspect scrambled up and vanished into the crowd. But when the police arrived moments later, they saw only Issa on the ground, confused and wide-eyed. He didn't run, he didn't speak, he just froze. To them, that looked guilty. They shouted commands. "Get on the ground! Show me your hands!" But Issa didn't respond, not because he refused. He simply didn't process it. The noise, the lights, the tension, it overwhelmed him. He shut down. They tackled him. When Issa's mother stepped out of the restroom, the bench where she had left her son just minutes earlier was empty. At first, she wasn't alarmed. Maybe he had wandered a few steps. Maybe he was looking at something nearby. She called his name gently, then louder. She checked around the food court. Nothing. Then the panic hit. She started shouting, running in circles, calling for security. Shoppers stared. She didn't care. "Have you seen my son? Tall, quiet, autistic. He doesn't speak." She called her husband, breathless, shaking. Within minutes, he arrived and joined the search. Together, they scoured every hallway, every restroom, every store. They begged mall employees to check cameras. Finally, they reached the mall security office. The staff hesitated, then admitted that someone had been arrested earlier near the restroom wing. A man in a dark hoodie, matching Issa's description. But they weren't sure. The police had taken him hours ago. "Arrested?" his mother gasped. My son doesn't talk. He didn't do anything. Where did they take him?" But no one had a clear answer. They were told to try the city jail, then redirected to the sheriff's substation. No one could confirm anything. Hours passed. The parents kept calling, kept asking, kept hoping this was all a mistake. And it was. A terrible, devastating mistake. Meanwhile, Issa sat alone in a small, cold jail cell. No one explained anything. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him. The echo of metal doors slamming shut filled the air. Every noise startled him. Officers tried to question him. "What's your name? Where are you from? Why were you resisting arrest?" Issa didn't respond. He couldn't. He sat silently, hands folded in his lap, eyes wide. His breathing was shallow. He rocked slightly, overwhelmed by fear and sensory overload. They searched his pockets. No ID. The wallet he had was left in his mom's purse. One officer scanned his fingerprint record, but no name, and only said, "A foreign place of birth, Amman, Jordan," popped up in the system. Another officer made a call. ICE got involved. They entered the room like they were hunting someone dangerous. "Tell us your name. Say something," they demanded. "What's your immigration status? Why are you in this country?" Issa said nothing. He didn't even look up. He couldn't. To them, it was non-compliance, refusal to cooperate. They labeled him high risk and uncooperative. Hours later, ICE placed him in shackles and walked him to a white van. He didn't resist. He just went silent like he always had.
Thank you for watching. Part 2 will start in a few seconds. You'll appreciate if you support the channel by liking and sharing, and make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much.
Back at home, his parents still didn't know where he was. Their son had vanished. No official had called. No one gave a straight answer. Inside the ICE holding facility, the processing was routine, cold, mechanical. Issa sat with his head down while agents filled out forms, typed into terminals, and checked boxes that would decide his fate. But there was a problem. He didn't speak. Not a single word. One agent leaned over to another. "What's his name again?" "No ID, no answer, nothing. So what do we call him?" Another agent, young and smirking, said, "I don't know. Just put John Doe or Habibi Doe or something. That's what they all call each other anyway." The others chuckles, and that was it. Instead of John Doe, they labeled him Habibi Doe, a cruel nickname born from ignorance and arrogance, not understanding or care. It became the name printed on his file, his travel documents, and the digital case notes. To the system, Issa wasn't a person. He was paperwork. Silence. An inconvenience to be processed and moved out. No one asked why he didn't speak. No one stopped to consider that maybe he couldn't. No one called an advocate, an interpreter, or a medical professional. He was foreign-born. He didn't answer. That was enough. And with the flick of a pen and a careless chuckles laugh, the government stripped a man of his name and his country. Outside those walls, Issa's parents were in full panic mode. His mother couldn't sleep. His father was on the phone with every agency he could find, repeating the same sentence over and over, frustrated. "My son is a U.S. citizen. His name is Issa Michael Thomas. He has autism. He can't speak. He was born in Jordan, but raised here since he was 7. But by the time anyone took them seriously, the ICE van had already driven off. Destination, deportation, and Habibi Doe was on the manifest. Back in California, Issa's parents were growing frantic. They had gone from police station to jail to ICE headquarters, all in the same day. No one had answers. No one could confirm if Issa was in custody, or even if he'd been arrested. They searched databases, called detention centers, spoke to supervisors. Each time they gave his full legal name, Issa Michael Thomas. Each time the answer was the same. We have no one in custody by that name." His mother wept in the hallway of the Icefield office, clutching his birth certificate and passport. "He is my son! He's American! He doesn't speak! Please, just check again. His name is Issa Thomas." A clerk said, "Ma'am, we've searched. There's no record under that name. If you find a case number, we can try again." "But how can we find a case number if no one will tell us where he is?" her husband snapped, exhausted, eyes bloodshot from driving and pleading for 18 straight hours. They even contacted a local congressman's office. A staffer promised to look into it. But every system hit the same wall. No record of Issa Thomas, because he had been logged under a different name, one made up by someone who couldn't be bothered to care. Meanwhile, Issa was placed in a deportation staging center in the Mojave Desert, still silent, still alone. No lawyer, no phone call, no medical screening. He ate the food placed in front of him. He never spoke. He didn't cause trouble. To the staff, that made him easy to forget. His file stamped "Final Removal Order," voluntary non-responsive, was rushed through, and on the manifest, next to the line marked name, it didn't say Issa. It didn't say Thomas. It said Habibi Doe. The plane sat on the tarmac under the gray light of early morning. A handful of ICE officers escorted several individuals up the boarding ramp, shackled, silent, most with nothing but a small bag and the clothes on their backs. Among them was Issa, still silent, still labeled Habibi Doe. He didn't understand what was happening. No one had explained, no one had asked. His hands were cuffed loosely in front of him, his legs bound with soft restraints. He didn't resist. He didn't even blink. His eyes stared ahead, empty and overwhelmed. The agents placed him in a window seat near the rear of the aircraft. They didn't speak to him. One officer looked down and muttered, "Flight to Amman. Hope you speak Arabic, buddy." Issa didn't respond. He hadn't said a single word since the day he was arrested. Because he couldn't. Back in California, his mother jolted awake just before sunrise. She had fallen asleep with her shoes on, her phone still clutched in her hand. Her husband had stayed up all night, calling detention centers, congressional aides, even a civil rights attorney who promised to investigate further. 3 days had passed. Issa's room was exactly the same. His blanket still folded on the bed, headphones still resting on the nightstand. His favorite soft hoodie draped over the chair. His mother sat on the edge of the bed, holding a photo of him as a child. She ran her thumb across the image, whispering a prayer. No one knew where he was. Not her, not her husband, not the attorney they hired, not even the congressman's office that had promised to look into it. Every database said the same thing. No record found. No one by the name Issa Michael Thomas is currently in our custody. They asked if anyone matching his description had been transferred. No one we can confirm. They even called the airport. There are no public records for deportation flights. They called the embassy in Jordan. We haven't received any official transfer requests or notifications for a U.S. citizen named Issa Thomas. And that was the nightmare. Because no one was looking for Habibi Doe. Issa had been disappeared by a typo and a smirk, vanished into a system that didn't track mistakes, didn't issue corrections, and didn't care if you had a voice, especially if you couldn't use it. His parents spent every day calling hospitals in Amman. No sign. They called local shelters, churches, refugee aid centers. No luck. They even posted his photo online, begging people in Jordan to keep an eye out. "He doesn't speak. He may be scared. Please help." The post went viral in small corners of the internet, but still, nothing. The world had moved on. But for Issa's parents, every hour was agony. Every knock on the door might be news. Every phone ring might be a lead. Every moment without him was torture. And somewhere, on the other side of the world, their son was alone. Nameless, stateless, forgotten, but not by them. The plane landed at Queen Alia International Airport just after dusk. The lights of Amman twinkled in the distance, but for Issa, the descent was just noise and vibration. He stared out the window, unmoving, eyes wide but distant. He had no idea where he was. No one had told him. He hadn't eaten since the day before. A government agent stood beside him. "Get up. You're home." Issa didn't move. The agent pulled him by the arm and led him down the stairs of the aircraft, toward a side gate. No one else used it. It was the entrance reserved for deportees, a back door to a country that had long since forgotten him. A Jordanian officer stood at the gate, arms folded, disinterested. Another leaned against the wall, puffing a cigarette. They looked at the papers handed over by ICE, with the name Habibi Doe typed in bold across the top.
مين هذا الزلمة؟
"Who is this?" the Jordanian officer asked flatly in Arabic. "Deportee. Born here. Yours now," the American officer replied. "He doesn't talk?" "Nope. Not a word." The Jordanian officer waved him off. "Throw him out. I'm not babysitting another mute." With a shrug, the agents walked Issa to the outer gate, uncuffed him, and pushed him through the metal detector. No one explained anything. No welcome. No help. No file transfer. No handoff to social services. Just a quiet shove through a steel door. And then they left. Issa stood on the curb of a foreign airport. Alone. No luggage. No wallet. No phone. No name anyone recognized. The warm night air carried the smells of dust, exhaust, and street food, but nothing familiar. People hurried past him. Taxi drivers shouted offers to travelers. Children pulled their parents' hands. Airport guards barked at loiterers to move along. And Issa stood still, like a forgotten suitcase. No one helped. No one stopped. No one cared. He sat on the sidewalk as the sky grew dark. His hands shook. His legs curled up to his chest. He rocked gently, humming the same soft tone he used to sing when anxious. A tune only his mother recognized. He didn't know where to go. He didn't even know where he was. It was nearly 10 p.m. when Ahmed pulled his taxi up to the far corner of the airport lot. He had been driving since morning. Long hours, bad tips, and aching legs. But he needed the extra cash. His youngest daughter had outgrown her shoes again, and school started in 2 weeks. As he leaned against the side of his cab, sipping tea from a worn thermos, he noticed something unusual in the shadows near the terminal wall. A man, alone, sitting cross-legged on the pavement, still. Ahmed, squinted. The man wasn't panhandling. He wasn't moving. He wasn't sleeping. He was just there. Ahmed approached slowly, his instincts both cautious and curious. "Salam alaikum," he said gently. No answer. The man, Issa, looked up at him with wide eyes, but didn't speak. He rocked slightly, his hands balled into fists in his lap. Ahmed crouched down, thoughtful. "You okay, brother?" he asked in Arabic. "Are you lost? Do you need help?" Still nothing. He tried again in English, concerned. "You need ride? You hungry?" Issa didn't respond, but his eyes welled with something. Not fear, not hope, but deep confusion. That's when Ahmed noticed. No luggage, no phone, no documents, and no shoes. Just a worn pair of socks, covered in airport dust. Ahmed stood up, glanced around, then made a decision. He opened his passenger door and motioned gently, softly. "Come. Just sit. No charge. Safe." Issa didn't move at first, but after a moment he slowly stood up, legs weak, and stepped toward the cab. He ducked his head inside, settled into the seat, and stared straight ahead. Ahmed turned the heater on low. The night air had a chill, and drove off slowly. He didn't know who this man was, but something in his heart told him, This man doesn't belong on the street. This man needs someone to care. And so, he drove. Not to a hotel, not to a shelter, but to his own home. As Ahmed drove through the quiet streets of Amman, he kept glancing at the silent man in his passenger seat. There was something hauntingly familiar about him. The shape of his face, the stillness in his eyes, the way he sat, tense, but not threatening, lost, but not angry. It hit Ahmed like a soft blow to the chest. He looked just like his younger brother, Samir. Samir had passed away 15 years earlier, after a long illness. He had been quiet, too, gentle. He rarely spoke, even before the sickness took over. But he had a smile that could light up a room when he let it through. Ahmed felt his throat tighten. He hadn't thought about Samir in years. Not like this, not in the way that makes your chest ache with memory. He took a deep breath and whispered, more to himself than to Issa, "Ya Allah, it's like you sent me my brother back tonight." Issa didn't answer. But in that moment, under the soft light of the dashboard, Ahmed saw something flicker in his eyes. Maybe recognition, maybe peace, or maybe it was just the reflection of someone finally being seen. Ahmed pulled into the narrow driveway of his modest home on the city's edge. His wife peeked through the window as he opened the passenger door. Inside, Ahmed gave Issa a warm meal. Just rice and lentils, with flatbread and tea. Issa didn't say a word, but he ate, slowly, carefully. Then, exhausted beyond words, he fell asleep on the couch, curled into himself, like a child. Ahmed covered him with a soft blanket, the same one his brother used to use, and sat nearby in silence. That night, as Ahmed prayed, he wept softly, not just for Issa, but for Samir, and for the chance to do something right, something good, for someone who the world had thrown away. He didn't know who Issa was, but he knew what he was now: family. Morning sunlight crept through the curtains as birds chirped faintly outside Ahmed's small house. The air was cool, peaceful. Issa sat at the kitchen table, barefoot, wearing a clean t-shirt Ahmed had given him. He didn't say a word. He just stared softly at the steam rising from a cup of warm tea in front of him. Ahmed moved slowly, making breakfast. Eggs, fresh bread, and olive oil with za'atar. Simple, familiar, comforting. He placed a plate in front of Issa, then sat across from him. Still no words from Issa, but Ahmed wasn't in a hurry. He looked at the man before him and gently said, "You remind me of someone I loved very much." He paused, tapping his chest softly. "My brother, Samir." Issa didn't look up. Ahmed continued, his voice low and steady, almost like a prayer. He was quiet too, kind eyes. He never had to speak much for us to understand him. He smiled gently, his eyes misting. Sometimes I think Allah puts people in our path to help us heal something we didn't know was still broken. Issa's fingers moved across the edge of the table, slowly tracing invisible lines. Ahmed watched him, then added softly, "I don't know your story. I don't know your name. But I feel like you didn't land in front of me by accident." Issa blinked. Then, for the first time, he looked directly at Ahmed. Just for a moment. And in that moment, Ahmed knew. This man, silent as he was, understood. Maybe not the words, but the feeling, the trust, the care, the quiet bond between two souls who knew loss, and the strange grace of being found again. Ahmed stood quietly in the hallway as his wife, Layla, folded laundry on the couch. She looked up at him, then past him toward the kitchen, where Issa sat silently eating. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Ahmed, who is he? Why did you bring him home?" Ahmed walked over, sat beside her, and took her hand. "I don't know his name," he said honestly. "He didn't say a word. Not one." Layla tilted her head slightly. "So you brought home a stranger?" He nodded. "Yes, a stranger to us, but not to Allah." She looked uncertain. Ahmed turned toward the kitchen and then back to her. His voice grew steady, calm. "Do you remember my brother Samir?" She nodded. Of course she did. He looked just like him. I saw him sitting on the sidewalk at the airport, barefoot, alone, not begging, not moving, just still, like someone the world forgot. He paused, gathering the emotion rising in his throat. I asked him if he needed help. He didn't answer, but something in me knew I couldn't leave him there, not him, not tonight. Layla was silent for a moment. Then Ahmed said something she had heard him say only a few times in their marriage, and always with weight behind it. "He is Miskeen." The word echoed softly in the room. Miskeen, the one who is poor, vulnerable, in need, not just of money, but of mercy. "Our Prophet taught us," Ahmed continued, "to feed the Miskeen, to shelter the orphan, to care for the traveler who has no road. He's all three." Layla looked down, then back at the kitchen. Issa had finished his tea and was gently stacking his dishes, neat, careful, respectful. Ahmed placed his hand on her shoulder. "He's our guest now. However long Allah wills, we help him, as much as we can." Layla nodded slowly, her heart catching up to her faith. "Then we will do it," she said, "for Allah's sake." Later that evening, as Layla cleaned the dinner plates and Ahmed dried them beside her, she looked over at him and asked softly, "Habibi, what is he going to do during the day, when you're driving, when I'm at work?" Ahmed didn't even pause. "He comes with me," he said, matter of fact. "With you?" "In the front seat, like my co-pilot." Layla raised an eyebrow, drying her hands. "You sure about that? What if he gets overwhelmed? What if someone says something?" Ahmed smiled. "I'll handle it. He's quiet, calm, and I think being with me will help him feel safe, better than leaving him here alone all day." He walked over to the living room, where Issa sat cross-legged on a floor cushion, gently flipping through a magazine. Not reading, just looking. Ahmed looked at him and said, "Thoughtful, you ride with me tomorrow, okay?" Issa didn't speak, but after a few seconds, he nodded once. Layla watched the exchange from the doorway, her heart softening again. "You really believe Allah sent him to us?" Ahmed didn't look away from Issa as he answered, "I don't believe it, Layla. Whew, I know it." That night, the house was quiet. Issa lay peacefully on the small mattress Ahmed had set up in the corner of the living room. A soft blanket covered him. His hands were gently tucked beneath his cheek. He breathed slowly, like a child finally safe from the storm. In the bedroom, Layla and Ahmed lay in bed, whispering in the dark. Layla's voice was soft. "He still hasn't told us his name." Ahmed nodded against the pillow. "No, and maybe he doesn't know how." They both fell silent for a moment. Then Layla whispered, "We can't keep calling him he forever." "I know," Ahmed replied. Layla smiled faintly in the dark. "You remember what the ICE agents called him?" Ahmed let out a tired sigh. "Yes. Habibi Doe. I saw a ripped paper name tag. Like a joke, like he was nothing. They meant it to mock him," she said, "but Habibi means my love." Ahmed turned toward her. Layla continued, "Maybe that's what he needs most. Not a full name, not a government file, just love." They lay in silence again, the weight of the moment washing over them. Then Ahmed whispered, almost to himself, "Habibi, it suits him." Layla smiled, her eyes already closing. "Then that's who he is, until Allah gives us more." In the other room, the man once known to ICE as Habibi Doe slept soundly, unaware that, in this home, his name had just been redeemed. Not as a number, not as a case file, not as a problem, but as Habibi, the beloved,